this group that hasn't released music since 2005. Back then they were gearing up to drop this record,
Mm.
and they broke up. And one half of the group went on to become a behavioral analyst and kind of started working this day job. Another member of the group stayed in music, working behind the scenes with Kanye. But now Kanye, not giving us Donda, but giving us a new abstract Mindstate album where that he fully produced. Pretty cool. What was your just like initial response to all of it?
Yeah, very cool, very unexpected. I was not someone who's really familiar with abstract mind state. Like you said, it's been over 15 years since they've released new music, and independent artists that kind of ran out of momentum and importantly ran out of money to continue their careers at the time, and thus took a step back as performers. It was very interesting to read up on this. There's a great story on Complex by Andre G about all this, and uh, this duo, Old School Ice, the male in the group, he actually became an A&R specifically for good music, which is not something I was aware of, and they just kept referring to himself as a music industry veteran that was very anonymous. People didn't know him. Um, in particular, it points out that he was the one who picked out the beat for Big Sean's My Last and convinced him to do that song with Chris Brown, which of course was the breakthrough hit for Big Sean, who was probably the most successful straight up good music signing. We know how fraught that label has become, but I think that was a huge win for them. And just reading about this story is very interesting. And then I think like something that's more I think relevant to people right now would be that all the beats for this album, this Abstract Mind State comeback album, all these beats were made during the 2018 Wyoming sessions by Kanye. And they were out there at the time making this album. He had produced like 100 beats for them specifically as part of that big recording session. So it's just kind of cool to see this come together now. Because again, like no one really expected it. And I'm sure industry people knew about them being in Wyoming, but I certainly didn't really see it remarked upon all that much. So it's cool to have this now.
Yeah, it's really cool to be getting it. It's also probably something we should mention that Kanye is using this as a way, as like the jumping point or the first project off of a new label.
Yes, Yeezy Sound.
YZY. Yeah, Yeezy Sound, YZYSND. No vowels anymore. That's just the way he rolls. So,
Third
which
eye.
is kind of an interesting choice to take this, Chicago independent group that not many people have probably heard of, who are at least probably our age or younger, and kind of use them as a jumping point. But the fact of the matter is, this album sounds really great, and it makes a lot of sense that these beats came out of that Wyoming session, because I mean, not only did we hear about how much Kanye was working during that time, and how he was just kind of he was producing for everybody. Tiana Taylor, Nas, who we're going to talk about today, made 2 albums himself. It sounds like these sound like they came from that. They sound like things you heard on Kids See Ghosts or Yay. Like the chopped and screwedness of these beats and the samples and all of it just feel like they're from that time. And they really, I think, mix together like an old school sound, but that still sounds somewhat updated. It's pretty impressive, I think, and makes me excited that maybe we're going to get something kind of similar out of Donda. And it's hard to, I guess I shouldn't be jumping right to Donda from all this, but it's hard for me to kind of take apart Kanye, who's obviously the most relevant artist we're talking about in this conversation, even though this is an abstract mind state project.
Yeah,
so
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been cool to have this come out as the 5th album during that 2018 run of good music albums, just because all the fanfare and attention, it would have been really great for them. But either way, again, reading that story on Complex, it seems like Abstract Mind State views this as kind of like a bit of paying it forward on Kanye's behalf, like a bit of like creative altruism. And Kanye just had like really good motives about making good art and just really being invested in them after, I believe, they reconnected, and the old Abstract Mind State mixtapes helped inspire Kanye during that time. Again, the anecdote I didn't know about. But that is nice to see, just because, and perhaps they were sitting on this for a while and waiting for Kanye's next thing again to again kind of like elevate this. That's how
Mm,
I'll choose to think about it anyway. That's pretty cool. And apparently they also recorded 27 tracks during that session, meaning they have enough for another project still.
yeah.
And again, not something they were used to doing as independent artists that were on a tight budget back in the day. And
Hmm.
Kanye was like, "No, I want more. Let's keep making more." So it's very interesting to read. But even if you don't really know any of that context and you just listen to this album, uh, it's just like you said, really good beats matched with really good technical rapping. It has a great throwback, but also timeless vibe. And yeah, talk about a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think that that timelessness of it that you mentioned is right, and we're gonna kind of it kind of leads into the way I feel also about uh, King's Disease too, that we're gonna talk about in a second. I feel like there's like this like old school, but things like this could have come out at any point between probably like
Hmm.
1997 and now, I guess. Which
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
if we had heard this from anyone else other than Kanye or an artist who's a little
Yeah.
bit more old school, I would have
Common,
been like,
common
"What
from
is this?"
Chicago as well. You definitely hear some common vibes here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was hard to like almost like pick out my favorite tracks because they are like the parts I like in it are sometimes just like the samples that come up out of nowhere, and I'm like, well, is this really my favorite track because of Abstract Mind State or just because I think this is great production? Like the song I Feel Good. When you get that James Brown sample coming in all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, how can you not like this song all of a sudden? It's just like
Yeah.
such a perfect like chop right there. So um and what track stood out to you, or what were like the moments that you found yourself enjoying
Yeah,
most?
I feel good stands out to me. I really like the Wise Tale as well. The whole thing sounds really great. Um,
Mhm.
and because the production's so layered and it's also sample heavy as we expect from anything related to Kanye, of course, rewards multiple listens. But yeah, it's just, much like you said, yeah, as you're getting at, much like the Nas album, it's refreshing to hear older artists, older rappers still sound so inspired, still sound so good, So uh, sounds really good. Kind of reminds me of how like early pro era used to sound, where it's like, wow, these young kids, they're so traditionalist and interested in the past. That's so exciting and cool. Obviously, Abstract Mind State, hardly young kids by any stretch, but uh, you can definitely sense the hunger. And when you know when you know the story about how they were uh, not performing for so long and they come back
Mm.
and still sound so, I think, uh, re-energized or refreshed by this Kanye production. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Just real quick, what did you think of like the one time Kanye's vocals show up on this on Brenda's song?
Yeah, it sounds like older Kanye,
It
2018 Kanye.
does. Yep.
Like he's putting the full rhymes together. This is not the "Na Na Na" remix with the baby Kanye song.
Yep.
it's fully formed, which is like refreshing, which is shows you what kind of sad state of affairs we were in overall with Kanye.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just a couple of the songs I wanted to shout out. I thought the track Elevation stood out. I thought the vocal sample on that, just kind of like like looping it back, was a really nice touch. I also really enjoyed the guitar sample on My Reality, which also I thought had some of the best storytelling and like um, just straight like personal lyrics on the album. Um, and I think the last track that really stood out to me was Expository Mode. Just thought that sounded really cool with like a toned down like jazz drum in the background. Just really like a nice, like you said, these songs feel timeless, and I think that's what I really took away from this. Was just like the music slaps, but you could have told me that this was an album from 2001. I would have been like, oh, makes a lot of sense. So
Hmm.
I really enjoy that part. Any other tracks stood out to you, or are you ready to move on?
No, I think that's all of it. But again, like this is not something that's going to get a lot of commercial attention, so it's just cool to see it get platformed like this.